The funeral for former Vice President Dick Cheney gets underway in just about an hour at the Washington National Cathedral. Cheney died earlier this month at the age of 84. He'll receive military honors at today's memorial service with a bipartisan group of lawmakers and former presidents in attendance. Let's bring in senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang, who's joining me now from National Cathedral. Weijia, good to see you, my friend. So what are we expecting from the service today?
Good morning, Vlad. Good morning to everybody. Well, mourners have already been filing here into the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. More than 1,000 people are expected actually to pay tribute to former Vice President Dick Cheney and his decades of service, not only as vice president, but in so many other roles here in the nation's capital, from Secretary of Defense to White House Chief of Staff to Gerald Ford to a congressman serving Wyoming for a decade. And so, Vlad, as you can imagine, that also brings decades-long relationships, and we are seeing many people filing in here already, including former Vice President Al Gore, former Vice President Mike Pence, former Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to attend as well, former House Speakers Nancy Pelosi and John Boehner. And we also know that former President George W. Bush will be among those delivering remarks here to honor Cheney. Of course, he was the commander-in-chief when Cheney was vice president. They served together for 2 terms. And we will also hear from Cheney's daughter, former U.S. Congresswoman Liz Cheney, Vlad. But in addition to all the people we are spotting and who are expected to attend, it's quite notable who will not be here. And that is, of course, the sitting President Trump and sitting Vice President J.D. Vance. The White House tells CBS News that they were not invited today, which is not surprising, even though it is atypical because of the tense relationship between Trump and Cheney. In fact, back in 2024, Cheney voted for Vice President Harris at the time, even though he was a lifelong conservative, and he warned that Trump was a great threat to the Republic. And of course, Trump had many words for Cheney and especially for his daughter as well. So there will be no representation from the main offices of the White House today, Vlad.
Yeah, and we're showing live pictures, Weijia. And I know that as people continue to file past you, if you see somebody that you want to grab for an interview while we're on the air, please feel free to do so. But we're showing live pictures right now. We can see former House Speaker John Boehner, as you indicated, who has arrived at the National Cathedral. I also caught a glimpse of former Vice President Al Gore as well. And so who would have thought, if you had asked me, 10, 12 years ago, that Dick Cheney would be the one, Vice President Cheney would be the one to bring these members of Congress, these former presidents, these former vice presidents together under one roof in this moment of solidarity and in memorializing a great man, I probably wouldn't have believed you. There we see the former speaker, the former majority leader, Mitch McConnell, also on the screen there. I wouldn't have believed you, Weijia, but this image that we're looking at right now, where we see Republicans and Democrats all mingling together to memorialize this man, sort of harkens back to a time before, a decade ago, when it was a more genteel, if that it could be the word that can be used, between Republicans and Democrats. We're no longer living under those in those times.
No, Vlad, we're not. But I think, the other point that you make is that even though Dick Cheney is known as one of the most powerful vice presidents of all time, he was also quite a polarizing figure, even within his own party. And he was the architect of the invasion into Iraq, the Iraq War, the War on Terror in response to the attacks on 9/11, which of course were extremely controversial for years and years, even well after he left the White House. In fact, you'll like this, Vlad, I know, but as you know, his nickname was Darth Vader because in reports and writing about him, people often said he was the force behind so many consequential decisions, especially as it related to foreign policy. And I mention that, Vlad, because it's something that Cheney himself embraced and often laughed at, especially after he was vice president.
Yeah, there is absolutely no doubt, as you point out, Weijia, that former Vice President Cheney made some unpopular decisions, some even questionable decisions when it came to American foreign policy. But at the end of the day, as you point out, he did leave his mark on Washington, on this country, on the way we conduct business overseas, for better or for worse, depending on which side of the political aisle you sit on. That isn't to either to canonize him or to criticize him. It just is what it is, in that he left this mark on this country. And so that's why you see all these individuals, both Democrat, Republican, Independent, all filing. And also what we're seeing, Weijia, you maybe have returned, but we're seeing them smiling, shaking hands, whispering to each other. It is sort of a remarkable sight. Weijia, I know that you're going to be there for the entirety of this service. We'll check in with you a little later. Hopefully you get a chance to speak to some of those lawmakers and some of those former executives, and maybe we'll be able to turn that for CBS News 24/7. Thank you, my friend.